pretty sure we're live right now. Welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name's Steve Boykin, and I am here in beautiful Boulder Creek, California. And we're heading into World War III. No, I don't know. Well, that remains to be seen. But this is my first Sunday show of the new year. The week flew right the fuck by me. So I don't have a guest lined up. So today is going to be the AMA that we didn't get to last week. On top of that, I've got a lot of stuff to go over. I'm looking forward to the show this morning. I hope you guys are too. It is good to be back in the studio. I spent most of yesterday over in San Jose. I was covering the No War on Iran protest there. We got some great footage. Audio's too low. Fuck! I don't even know what to do about that, guys. I really, really don't. Let me see which microphone I'm using. I'm not entirely sure what to do about this. I'm gonna fucking yell and scream. Let me know if I'm here. It's a bit hard to hear. Fuck. Let me switch microphones. Is this any better? Let me know if you can hear me. Trying like hell to get good sound out here, and it is fucking killing me that this is not. Is it any better? Let me know in the chat, please. Hey, Max! I don't know, can you fucking hear the loud ass fucking stump grinder behind me? Shit! I have no idea what the fuck just happened. This has been happening all goddamn morning. Please let me know. White noises in the background. I'm fucking flipping out over here. Let me know if this is any better. You can sort of hear me. Motherfuck. I don't even know if this is gonna make a difference. You can hear me a bit better now? I don't know. I'm just gonna get really fucking loud, and hopefully this will transfer over to what we've going on. Like I said, this is gonna be an AMA, so if you have any questions you want to throw at me, please do so. I have been checking the actual mic level. I'm currently, I'll do that over here. Here, let me turn up over here. See if that's any fucking different. We'll take the automatically adjust volume off and we'll turn it up over here. Thank you for being my producers, guys. I do appreciate that. And we'll see if that works. Hopefully that works, and hopefully we can have a decent show. So I went to San Jose yesterday. Motherfuck! I went to San Jose yesterday to cover the No War in Iran protests. There were about 60 or 70 people there. Got an interview with a lady from Code Pink on this channel. We did a couple of different interviews through the Action for Assange channel. And while I'm talking about Action for Assange, my co-host Taylor Hudak was on vacation this past week. She was down in LA. She got some great footage of a speech Jimmy Dore gave. you guys should go check that out. She will be back for Wednesday's show, and then next Sunday at this time on both this channel and Gordon Dimmick's channel, we will be doing a special Sunday Free Assange Vigil. We will be interviewing Tariq Haddad, who recently resigned from Newsweek over the OPCW leaks. He wanted to cover them. They did not want them covered in an accurate way. They wanted to go the route of lies, propaganda, and Bellingcat. So it'll be a fascinating conversation to talk to Tariq. MEB, Greek Emmy, will be on that show as well as Somerset Bean, who has done some of the most prolific and recognizable graphic design in terms of Julian Assange. So yeah, it's going to be a fantastic show. I think I announced this earlier, but all super chats to Slow News Day are going to get transferred directly to the London GoFundMe. I don't know why this is changing fucking microphones like this and why it's fucking off my camera. Wow! This is a fucking... These tech issues have been happening like crazy all day. Why are you... What the fuck? Live television, guys. Live interwebs. Can't beat it. What the fuck? Let's see what happens when I plug the camera into a different USB port. This is the kind of professionalism you come to expect. What the fuck? Well, fuck it. I guess we're gonna do it in a little bit lower quality today. Let's go right for the questions then. What's the probability that Iran will do anything, and should they do anything? Iraq just voted to expel the U.S. military. If you guys, let's set this up a little bit, and to set this up, let me play General Wesley Clark from back in 2005.
Not Iran. I knew why, because I'd been through the Pentagon right after 9/11. About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me. And one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran. I said, is it classified? He said, yes, sir. I said, well, don't show it to me. And I saw him a year or so ago, and I said, you remember that? He said, sir, I didn't show you that memo. I didn't.
So here we are, you know, in 2020, and it took 15 years, but it does look like we're going after the crown jewel on that list, which is Iran. We'd asked the Iraqis to mediate with Iran. The Iraqis invited General Soleimani to Iraq for this mediation, and we dropped hellfires on the guy. Iran, if you guys haven't seen the visual footage of Soleimani's funeral, it is hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in the streets, raging fucking pissed that we took out their general. This guy was basically one of the most popular figures in Iran. He was the mastermind behind driving ISIS and Daesh out of Syria, out of parts of Iraq. We took out the guy responsible for beating the shit out of ISIS. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the background of ISIS, they're basically a CIA fucking owned and operated unit. We can't admit that publicly, but it does seem to be a little bit of a head scratcher that we would take him out. Marmiar in the Panhandle with a fucking $100 super chat. That is just incredible, and thank you so much. Quinn, this is on your behalf. Any effort to get the truth out, I'm in. By the way, Christy D's Pete 2020 action was effing brilliant. Yeah, so the action for Assange team was pretty much scattered all over the place this weekend. Christy was in New Hampshire. She went to a Pete Buttigieg event and met Lucille from Unity for Jay for the first time in real life. There is a sweet and adorable picture on her Twitter feed of it. I'm really, really glad that they got to meet and hang out. They've been working in concert with each other for quite a while now. And it really is, it's kind of rare when we all get to meet up. When Taylor and I go to London, that'll be my first time meeting her in person. When Andrew and Christy are on Redacted VIP tomorrow, which, by the way, Andrew and Christy are going to DC, and they're going to be on Lee Camp's show, in order to promote the actions that are going to take place during the first week of Julian Assange's extradition hearing. Please look for that and help spread the word. They're going to meet for the first time. It was only because Andrew and Taylor live in kind of proximity to each other that they met up and then went on did a couple actions, hanging posters, went to a Jimmy Dore show in Chicago, did the same thing. It's where they met Misty, Sarcasm Stardust. Yeah, so it is kind of rare when we all get together living in this like sort of virtual community that we do, and I hope that as the year progresses, we have more opportunities to meet and hang out. I know somebody was giving Lucille some shit for holding up a Pete sign in the picture, but look, dude, if you're going to get in to infiltrate and disrupt, hold up a fucking Pete sign for 10 minutes. You know, that's fine with me. It is. Yes, it did take longer than 5 years, and yes, they did get their wish. So let's kind of explore this a little bit more, because I wanted to play a little Wesley Clark clip for a reason. The probability that Iran is going to do something about this in terms of retaliation, is pretty thin. The people are clamoring for it. If you see pictures of Iran's mosques, they have the red flag of war flying over it. The people on the ground want some sort of retribution, but when you invite the retribution of the U.S., you're inviting the retribution of several nuclearized countries. You are inviting borderline genocide to be rained down upon your people from the sky. There's I think his name's West, Lord Admiral West, one of the commanders of the British Navy, stated that it would take at least 1 million bodies to be able to hold and potentially secure Iran. We have 1.2 active duty military in the U.S. That is almost fucking all of them. I highly doubt anyone, even the fucking crazy neocons in D.C. that are behind this, which we'll touch on in a second, I doubt any of them want to commit 1 million fucking troops to this effort when it's not going to it will help them in terms of prolonging the existence of the military-industrial complex. It'll help them in terms of sustaining defense contractors, and all of the fucking bottom feeders that make ancillary money off of the defense contractors. What it won't do is end the war on terror. You can't wage war against an idea. You can't, and expect to win. I tweeted out about this the other day. The United States doesn't even consider winning wars when we go into planning military strategy anymore. What we do is we prolong wars. It's to enrich and entrench defense contractors, intelligence agencies. It's solely designed to establish a global hegemony that is backed in the blood that we spill in order to acquire the natural resources that keep these weapons of war rolling out, that keep the fucking computers and phones in our hands, that keep the fucking batteries in your Super Duchy Prius. That's it. Yeah, 1 million on the ground, 2 million more for support and supply lines. Where are we gonna get the extra 2 million people from? We're not going to reinstate the draft because we have a poverty draft. We're not going to reinstate the draft because there is nationwide action as people become aware of the fact that their sons and their daughters now, at least, will be fucking arbitrarily selected. It's based on how much money they have, to go fight and die so that we can boost Raytheon's quarterly profit. The way to make a poverty draft successful is to so thoroughly cripple the economy that you automatically have a pool of poor, desperate, destitute people that then you can send in a military recruiter who are, by the way, the most evil fucking liars on the goddamn planet. And that military recruiter will say, hey, you can rot in your hometown broke for the rest of your life, or you can join the army and fucking get an education and get out there and be somebody. That's how you successfully extend a poverty draft. You cripple the fucking economy. You make it a two-tiered economy where there is a very small number of people that control the vast majority of the wealth, and then there are the rest of us. I got 3 kids. My 13-year-old asked me yesterday morning, fucking scared, Dad, is there going to be a draft? Probably not. Probably not. But they're going to do everything they can to put us in a financial position where it looks like to you the military may be your only way out. Our only only jobs program for broke kids is the military. Anthony Reyes, you are absolutely correct about that. You are. That's the sick fucking factor. Yeah. And speaking of that jobs program, there's a Truth Out article that showed up. Let's see, what's the date on this? Back in July, Gareth Porter wrote the article. Because you guys got to remember, early on in July, late May, John Bolton gave a very saber-rattling speech about Iran. One of the many myths that have been used to justify the push for war in Iran, led by National Security Advisor John Bolton and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, is that Tehran is responsible for killing more than 600 troops during the Iraq War. Special Representative for Iran, Brian Hook, whose job is to round up international support for the Trump administration's campaign of maximum pressure on Iran, presented the charge at a State Department press briefing in April. I can announce today, based on declassified U.S. military reports, he said, that Iran is responsible for the deaths of 608 American service members. This accounts for 17% of all deaths of U.S. personnel in Iraq from 2003 to 2011. Let's drop down a little bit. The myth that Tehran is responsible for killing over 600 U.S. troops in the Iraq War is merely a new variant of a propaganda line that former Vice President Dick Cheney used to attempt to justify a war against Iran more than a decade ago. The history of the myth begins with Dick Cheney's determination to attack Iran sometime before the end of George W. Bush's administration. This also correlates with the list of 7 countries in 5 years that General Wesley Clark read off. Cheney had completed a campaign of U.S. airstrikes on Iran to be justified by charging that Iran was trying to produce a nuclear weapon. But the rationale for a U.S. military strike was unanimously rejected by the Joint Chiefs, meeting with Cheney and Bush. After that rebuff, Cheney began to focus on another rationale for the war in Iran: the alleged Iranian role in killing U.S. troops in Iraq. On January 10, 2007, President Bush gave a speech that included language of accusing Iran of providing material support for attacks on American troops. Although Bush did not threaten them in that speech to retaliate, threaten Iran in that speech, his words established a legal and political basis for a possible future attack. You guys see what's going on here? I know you do. You're my audience. You're smart as fuck. The groundwork for this was ultimately laid back in 1998 with the formation of PNAC, the Project for a New American Century. This is 20 plus years in the making, and it's fucking gross. Got a $5 super chat from Propaganda. Thank you very much, Quinn. That's fucking awesome. I really, you guys, you have no idea how much I appreciate this shit. Have you asked RT about going on Going Underground or George Galloway's show? We've reached out to George Galloway a couple of times and haven't heard anything back. In terms of going on a different show on RT, the hitch is you either have to go to the studio in DC or you have to go to a news station that has the ability to directly link you to RT. There's not, I think there might be one RT affiliate studio in LA, and that's how Ron Placone and those guys get to go on Crosstalk. But other than that, it's not like I can just, zoom in for an interview. You have to physically be there. So that's presenting a little bit of a hang up. I would love for myself or anyone involved with Action for Assange to have an opportunity to bring what we do to a larger audience. I would love to have an opportunity to meet and talk with George Galloway. we're gonna keep trying. That's about the best that I got for you. Uh, let's see. Try and see if there's any more questions here in the chat other than comments. This isn't Ask Me Anything. You can fucking, this doesn't have to exclusively be on Iran. I have other stuff that I want to talk about. Going Underground has London studios. Yeah, no, as we get closer, now I kind of see where you're going with this, Quinn. I'm sorry. It's still kind of early where I am. I'm a little bit sleepy. I had a full day yesterday. As we get closer to going to London, we are definitely going to reach out to content creators and people who have established shows there, and we are absolutely going to try and get on them. At this point, 6 weeks out, it's a little bit. I feel like it's jumping the gun a little bit since we don't have a U.S. media presence outside of the one that we've created. Going on Redacted VIP tomorrow, Andrew and Christy. Again, like, that's going to be the first big media that we've been able to do. I do hope that that leads to other RT, I guess, shows picking up on it. Like, I would love to do Fault Lines. I would love to do an episode talking with Garland Nixon and Lee Stranahan about all of this. If you guys have any fucking pull at all, if anybody watching besides Kevin has any kind of pull at all with Lee Stranahan, get me on that fucking show. I won't even swear. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch gears here real quick because in the midst of this World War III shit, it is also primary season. And I'm gonna go ahead and set this up before I go back to the article. If you guys aren't familiar with Greg Palast, he's an investigative journalist. He's been around forever. He's been on Jimmy Dore's show a number of times. He used to be a guy that the mainstream media would have on until he found out that, or at least had documentary evidence to prove that both parties are complicit in election fraud and election rigging. Greg Palast proved unequivocally that several states helped Donald Trump win the 2016 election. And of course, the Democrats do fuck all about it. If the Democrats gave a shit about election integrity, they would have passed Tulsi Gabbard's legislation. They would have fought to end interstate crosscheck. They would have fought to get rid of gerrymandering, but gerrymandering will benefit the Democrats if they have the House when it's time to do the census. Greg Palast has a documentary called The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, and I highly recommend that you watch that gig. Please go do that. But coming back to the article, this is something that if you haven't read this, if you're not familiar with it, came out just before the new year. Hunting season on voters opens with Georgia and Wisconsin purges. Mass registration cancellations ordered by courts. Let's go, yeah. In Atlanta on Friday, federal judge Steve Jones ruled against Stacey Abrams' organization Fair Fight in its suit to immediately restore nearly 100,000 Georgians to the voter rolls. Turns out that Abrams' attorneys were not in a fair fight against this federal judge who refused to even consider if the purge would cause irreparable harm. Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, wow, was using a method of vote suppression purge by postcard created by Trump's vote fraud advisor Chris Kobach of Kansas. Kobach, if you remember, is also the architect of interstate crosscheck. Under the guise of voter list maintenance, Georgia set out postcards designed by Kobach that look like cheap junk mail. When a voter fails to return the card, they lose their vote. Yes, the canceled voter can re-register, but as we have uncovered in our film, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, most people won't know they're pulled from the list until it's too late. Let's... In an ominous note, Judge Jones cited Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia's opinion in Crawford versus Marion County Election Board, in which the court allowed Indiana to force voters to obtain photo voter ID if they did not have a current driver's license. The now deceased justice ruled that ordinary and widespread burdens, such as those requiring nominal effort of everyone, are not severe. Lawyers representing the low-income plaintiffs complained that the average county office where ID could be obtained was 17 miles from the typical resident, a major burden for the poor. There we go. I was going to say, I want to get down to where this becomes a new trend among state courts. The Georgia ruling comes on the heels of a devastating ruling by a Wisconsin court in which, for the first time ever, orders the state to purge voters when the state itself has declared the purge list faulty. On December 13th, Wisconsin Ozaukee County Judge Paul Malloy ordered the state elections board to remove 234,000 from the rolls on a petition of a right-wing group, Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, despite the board determining that the purge would remove legal voters. The legal precedent is astonishing. This is the first time a state has been ordered to remove citizens' voting rights en masse. In June 2018, the U.S. Supreme Court allowed states to remove voters on evidence they'd moved residents, but no state has been forced to remove voters, especially in light of evidence that the purge lists are faulty. Are you guys picking up what Greg Palast is putting down here? States now have the green light to just rampantly shatter their voter rolls. And they apparently don't need a fucking justification for it at all. Even if they've proved that their own fucking methods of purging votes are faulty, they can just go right ahead and do it. I bring this up because we've got a huge distraction with the war in Iran, with a potential war in Iran. We've got a huge distraction with the still potentiality of impeachment. And look, if Congress wants to, they can draw up different articles of impeachment for different bullshit from now until the end of goddamn time. And they can keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, regardless of how many times the Senate will dismiss the charges. See if I've got any more questions. Guys, this is a Sunday AMA. You can ask me anything you want about anything at all. I will fucking answer the questions. And also, I should mention I'm going to mention this a few times throughout the show. If you give a super chat to this show, I am taking all of that and putting it into our GoFundMe for Action for Assange, for the London and DC coverage and events, because honestly, I otherwise wouldn't be able to donate to my own GoFundMe. So it's going to be a transfer from that. I am really, really hoping that in the next few weeks we can ramp up the GoFundMe. We're a little bit over a quarter of the way there, thanks to all of you guys' help. If you have donated to that, I so appreciate it. If you haven't, I totally understand. It is my pinned tweet on my Twitter page at Slow News Day Show. If you just flat the fuck out aren't in a position to donate, please go ahead and share the link. Like everything helps. And thank you for that. The smoking gun is the exit polling and margin of error not lying. Well, yeah, that's why they got rid of exit polls in 2016. That's why they stopped fucking counting them, reporting on them. All it did was reinforce the reality that Hillary Clinton was fucking blatantly robbing a primary. It'll be interesting to see if they use exit polls in 2020. It'll be a neat tip-off right out of the gate if they're not. War is a distraction from a failing economy. Well, and also, war is one of the things that will drive that failing economy. Donald Trump was just on Twitter bragging that he had $2 trillion that he just spent on war. $2 trillion. It was even trending on Twitter. $2 trillion. It is almost impossible to think of all of the good that you could do with $2 trillion. Donald Trump and the people that propped up Donald Trump and made him a thing, and the people that lead Donald Trump by the nose when it comes to war, they're going to keep finding ways to spend that money. Donald Trump recently said that the defense budget is unlimited. If you're watching this and you voted for Donald Trump, do you feel fucking dumb yet? Because you should. You should feel as dumb as everyone who voted for Obama felt when they thought that they were getting hope and change, and what they got was drone wars, the surveillance state, bailed out bankers, fucking the most massive transfer of wealth to the top fucking 1% in history at that point. Donald Trump turned around and beat it with his $1.5 trillion tax cut. Anthony Reyes, Steve, do you think the new revelation that Maxwell is in a safe house in Israel have anything to do with the staining of the Soleimani bombing? It's too fucking okay script for my, it's too fucking on script for my book. Ghislaine Maxwell, and we've been over this a lot, and if you have been with me for a while, hopefully you were there for all of the interviews that I did with Whitney Webb. Whitney, by the way, will be coming back on the show either later this month or 1st of February. And I'm going to kind of give a lead into why here in a moment. Ghislaine Maxwell is without a doubt a Mossad asset. Her father, without a doubt, Mossad asset. The thing that like, I don't know, kind of takes away from the credibility of the obvious notion that Ghislaine Maxwell is being protected and moved from safe house to safe house. It's because the only person or the only outlet reporting on it is the Daily Mail. However, I am not one of those people that will attack a source just because I don't like the politics behind a lot of their opinions. The Daily Mail's had some gems over the years. Of course, look. This is all related. If the global elite are also part and parcel of the global intelligence community, uh, global defense contractors, global tech companies. If that's the case, and I have no reason to believe it's not, then if there's direct evidence that comes to light, as there has been, that these global elites are also rotten fucking pedophiles who traffic and rape children for blackmail, power leveraging, and sport fucking. Um, I mean, there should be worldwide protests over it. I think the getting Ghislaine Maxwell and getting her in court um, would be one of the things to set that off. If you look at the timeline of what's happened in Iran in correlation with both what Soleimani had done to drive ISIS out of Syria and the OPCW leaks, we've got the first leaks starting to come out last summer. We've got the leaks being reported on in earnest and followed up on in about August. In November of this year, Iran announces that they found 53 billion barrels of oil in a new location. The OPCW leaks keep coming out. And then we assassinate Soleimani. What does that have to do with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell? It would be foolish to think for a second that Israel doesn't already have boots on the ground in Iraq, in Iran, doesn't have a presence in Iran. They've been fucking citing basically holy war against each other since Israel was a state and it formed. No, it's 100%. It's all related. Fred Edward, any affordable land or housing around me? Fuck no, there is not. You have to go either way up north or into the middle of the desert before you start finding affordable land. There's no real work there. Yeah, we don't. Affordable land and housing doesn't exist in California, really, and certainly not in the area that I'm at, given our proximity to Silicon Valley. Do I think that? Oh, I did that. The Trumpers are spinning it as Trump stopping a plot. That's hilarious. I'm still trying to grasp the top wealth 1% increase 25% in 2019. Yeah, well, look, okay. This is something that spans administrations, that doesn't have partisan lines, that doesn't have a political ideology, and that's the consolidation of wealth by a handful of global elites. Every market crash, every recession, every economic downturn, every housing collapse is all 100% preventable, but is also entirely engineered to speed up that transfer of wealth. Between the $1.5 trillion in tax cuts and the fucking economic meltdown that is doubtless on its way, we're going to see that elite, that 1/10 of 1%, or 1/10 of 1/10 of 1%, we're going to see their wealth skyrocket, and we're going to be left holding the bag for paying all of this. Until we organize and get together and, get out and demand some fucking agencies. How in the flying fuck did Bill Barr work full time for the CIA and have the time to go to night school and get his law degree? Bill Barr started out as an attorney for the CIA. He already had the degree before he started working for the CIA. Bill Barr was instrumental in trying to block the release of the Pentagon Papers. He was trying to block all of the testimony from the Church Committee from becoming public. Both him and a guy named William Casey, who later became CIA director and is famous for the quote, "We will know our disinformation campaign is complete when nothing the American public believes is real." What's my opinion on nonviolent civil disobedience with sustained logistics and demands to stop the wars? It's got to happen in concert with like stay-at-home boycotts, with divesting from the banks that enable these machinations of war to continue. Like, there's all kinds of ways that you can protest. I do always recommend decentralized activism before centralized activism, for the sole reason that it's just way harder to become infiltrated if it's just you and a few of your friends doing the action. I would be wary of any protest that feels like a parade. I would be wary of any protest that has significant sponsorship or backing, especially by one of the major political parties, or the nonprofit industrial complex that sustains the two-party system. I would be wary of that. I think if there's going to be civil disobedience, it has to be nonviolent. We've got psychopathic fucking pedophiles who would love nothing more than to lay waste to the rabble-rousers. They would love for an excuse to round up everyone with dissent in their blood and eliminate that line from the gene pool. Both the push for transhumanism and the desire to weed out leaders of protest is to get a controllable population. They're not ever going to look out for us. Ever. So, yeah, that's basically what I got for that. They'll all be infiltrated regardless. Yes, you're absolutely right, Kat. You're absolutely right. If you've got a group of 5 people that you've been hanging out with, and you are talking about planning an action, attending a protest, doing something like that, and one of those people is like, I know where to get weapons, or we should blow this up, or we should do this or that's in a violent fashion, you've been infiltrated. That's the fucking Fed. Disassociate yourself from that person as quickly as possible. That would be my advice. It's my opinion on Bernie being counter-revolutionary. We can't vote out oligarchy. Look, I genuinely believe that Bernie Sanders believes that the governing process that we have provides a path to a sustainable future. I don't agree with that at all, but I believe that he believes in the process. I also believe that that he's compromised as fuck. I believe that there are moles throughout his campaign. I believe that prior to going on stage, to deliver ultimately a concession and please vote for the woman who destroyed me speech, that he was threatened, toe the fucking line or we'll end your family. He acts like a compromised individual. He does. But I believe that in terms of him being counter-revolutionary, that's an observation that you make when you've understood that the process that we have is not a process to a sustainable future. It would be you would have a hard argument with a Bernie Sanders supporter making the case that what he's doing is counter-revolutionary. I believe it is because revolutions don't happen at the fucking ballot box. I believe it's counter-revolutionary because it's taking an entire generation of activists and putting them inside the Democratic Party, which does not, will not, and has not represented them as regular working people. But making that argument to a true believer is up fucking hill. Bernie campaigned for HRC and told people Trump was the worst thing on earth. Yeah, you know, I mean, look, what else was he fucking supposed to do as a compromised individual? Say the fucking, the Clinton goons showed me a video of my grandchildren that they shouldn't have had any way of being able to film, and they both had fucking, red scope dots on their heads. Like, look, I've said for a long time, if Bernie wanted to and had the will to do it, he could have launched a legitimate third-party movement and taken that to electoral success here in 2020. He had all the reasons to do it. We had an activist base in Bernie Sanders supporters in 2016 that had access to all of the information proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that the 2016 primary was stolen from Bernie Sanders. And Bernie said, go vote for Hillary. What's past is past. We're looking forward. The vast majority of those activists chose to believe that and have given every fucking penny since to get him elected president. They have left their homes and gone to fucking Iowa or New Hampshire or wherever on the ground that he needs people or feel like they need to be. So that he can participate in a knowingly rigged system against corrupt actors on all sides. And I don't see the logic in that, but I don't control people. So, you know, it doesn't make any fucking sense to me though. What do you think of Virginians becoming felons if they don't turn in their AR-15s and related small arms? I think, Vilmeath, I hope I'm saying that right, I think that's fucking tyranny. Baba Vanga prediction 2020, Trump died tumor, Putin die assassination, and Russian make Soviet 21st century. Interesting. Shoot me a link. I'll go check that out. Ganozer channel. Please do that. Bernie fans are high on themselves. Look, I've been involved in politics and covering politics and writing about it and protesting against it and all that kind of shit for about 25 years. 25 years. I was involved in my first political campaign at 16, or worked for. Um, I was also involved in a couple of my first protests. Um, it, what what happens in the middle of a campaign, and especially one that has the energy that Bernie's campaign does, is your the energy is so high, and you start to really get a sense that we could pull this off, we could do this, this could really happen. Um, and when your alternative is to acknowledge the reality that we live in inverted totalitarianism, that we have rigged elections, that, you know, there isn't a political party that stands for regular workers, let alone a labor movement, let alone a fucking anti-war movement, um, you can acknowledge that reality, or you can surround yourself with love and positive energy for as long as humanly possible. And then when your heart gets broken, you certainly don't blame the guy that just took all of your money. You blame the system that produced him. Um, Now, what you choose to do after that, I advocate nonviolent civil disobedience. I advocate decentralized activism. I hope it doesn't come down to armed insurrection. Um, but if they're making people in Virginia give up fucking small arms and AR-15s ahead of the 2020 election, I would be incredibly worried about that becoming a trend in the U.S., and I would be incredibly worried about what the end game for that is. And on that note, I'm going to take us over to an article that Whitney Webb just released. Whitney, again, one of the best working journalists that we have right now. Let me scroll back up to the top and kind of give you the breakdown here. Election Day 2020. 32 Americans dead, over 200 injured, martial law declared, and the election itself is canceled. While this horrific scenario seems more like the plot of a Hollywood film, such was the end result of a recent simulation examining the preparedness of U.S. officials from the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and the Secret Service against, quote, bad actors, unquote, seeking to undermine the upcoming presidential election. Yet this simulation was not a government-organized exercise, but was instead orchestrated by a private company with deep ties to foreign and domestic intelligence services, a company that is also funded by investors with clear connections to individuals who would stand to benefit if such a catastrophic election outcome were to become reality. Let's scroll down just a little bit. Okay, many of the very same media outlets and groups that frequently fretted about Russia, China, or another rival state meddling in U.S. democracy have largely ignored the role of other nation states, such as Israel, in efforts to sway the last U.S. election in 2016 and meddle in numerous elections in Africa, Latin America, and Asia in the years since. As a consequence of this climate of fear, it should be hardly surprising that corporate media lauded the recent 2020 election simulation exercise that ended in an abysmal failure, the cancellation of U.S. elections, and the imposition of martial law. Yet none of these reports on the exercise noted that the company that hosted the simulation, called Cybereason, is led by ex-members of Israel's military intelligence Unit 8200, which we've talked about on this show extensively, advised by former top and current officials in both Israeli military intelligence and the CIA. Oh, shit. In addition, it is funded by and partnered with top U.S. weapons manufacturer and government contractor Lockheed Martin and financial institutions with clear and direct ties to Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and White House advisor and the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. With Cyberreason planning to host more simulations in cooperation with federal agencies as the U.S. election inches closer, a deeper exploration of this company, its ties to intelligence and military contractors in the U.S. and Israel, and its financial ties to key Trump allies both domestically and abroad warrants further investigation. I'm going to hold off on just diving right into that article. Mostly because I just wanted to set it up, and Whitney's going to come on the show and talk about it herself. When a company is holding those kinds of simulations, it in my mind is one of those things where the elites have to have to tell us what they're doing before they do it in order to avoid their plans failing. You have to declare intent if you want the spell to work as it is. What better way to do that than to be in a hot war with Iran, with a fucking potential catastrophic world war involving China and Russia and Iran versus us and Israel and the UK and whoever else gets threatened or cajoled or fucking cornered into assisting us. I would also look for a really hot summer. I might lose a lot of you at this point, but you guys have heard me talk about geoengineering and its relation to climate change. If you haven't noticed, if you don't have friends there, if you don't live there, Australia's on fucking fire. Absolutely on fire. Of course, mainstream media is attributing all of it to climate change. Few ridges back over there is Lockheed Martin. If you go to their website, they brag about direct energy weapon technology and its capabilities. I would be very... Oh, okay, so look. This is what needs to happen. I need to pull up the Susie Dawson thread where she talks about what's fucking going on in terms of people on the ground there. And then it will be up to you to decide whether or not Australia is a test ground for... what I got here? Oh, god damn it. It is a test ground for what is about to happen in the United States. So, Susie Dawson, one of my personal journalistic heroes, targeted journalist, targeted Kiwi journalist. She currently has a project called One versus Five Eye, where she is taking her personal fight directly to the intelligence agencies that have been attempting to destroy her life, which, again, I wholeheartedly support. If you are unfamiliar with her work, please go to Susie3D, which is her YouTube page. Take a look at her collected work. She is tremendous and well worth getting to know. So look, Susie says, I have people close to me stuck in the Aussie bushfire zone, which is spread over more than 500 miles and counting. We need to understand what they're going through because many of them are living a reality where the government doesn't save you and no electricity equals no internet. The total breakdown of civilization is taking place in Australia right now. And this just kind of highlights some of this. Yesterday, I retweeted a guy who was aghast after having discovered that he'd been issued an evacuation notice by his local government in a town which had no diesel fuel. How are you supposed to leave if you don't have fuel? That's step one. Even for those lucky enough to have fuel, many have no idea which roads to take or how to get out. Why? Because they have no electricity and therefore no internet, no Google Maps, no functioning GPS. You can't call an Uber to get out of a fire zone. Others are still finding they have no access to funds. No electricity equals no credit card processing. In an increasingly cashless society, how do you buy common goods when the social infrastructure fails you? Choices like this are becoming common. Very normal. My sister who lives in the nation's capital says she's withdrawing as much cash as possible because the city might lose power, is debating driving out of town and maybe getting caught in fires or staying near the Central Lakes for protection. For many years, my work is centered around how the global network, as the NSA terms it, undermines democracy and empowers authoritarianism. But in a disaster zone like Australia, the global network simply fails. No electricity, no matrix. People find all they have is each other. Oh, shit. Come on. You'd think I'd have this down by now. Australia couldn't have an election right now if they were slated to. They have no grid. They have no means to promote candidates. They have a fucking literal fire emergency that they're dealing with. This is a fire emergency that is not I don't want to put this. Of course it's fucking man-made. But perhaps not in the way that you're used to thinking of it as man-made. Until climate data incorporates what we know about geoengineering, it is always going to be incomplete data, and you should not trust it. I saw that a $9.99 super chat from Ed West. Ed, thank you very much, my brother. It is good to see you in the chat here. I'm sure I'm missing some questions. I'm trying to come back to this a little bit. Let's go down. There we go. We're bitching about Abby Martin. Look, man, Abby Martin has done incredible work over the years. She has stuck her neck out. She has made herself a target. And she has said a lot of stuff that I don't agree with. Her position specifically on not interacting with anyone who is involved directly in the movement to free Julian Assange, to have him pardoned. It stems from wanting activism all your own way. And it's not just a problem that Abby Martin has. Abby Martin just happens to be a person with a pretty large platform who damages activism by wanting it her own way. If you're unfamiliar with the background of the story, Jilly, you might be. If you're unfamiliar with the story, back in the Unity for Day days, that's fun to say. They had people of all political persuasions on that show because the point was to show unity regardless of political affiliation with Julian Assange, with free speech, with protection of whistleblowers. And Abby decided to take it personally that right-wingers had been on the show. So she gave herself the notion that if Unity for J would have on someone who at some point in their life espoused neocon tendencies, they themselves must 100% support all of the neocon tendencies that had ever been espoused under the course of fucking time and under God's gray earth. And she is not backed off of that at all. That is a pitfall of wanting activism your own way, and I wish that Abby wasn't falling victim to that. I wish that there was, I don't know, a little less ego involved in that decision, but I can wish in one hand and shit in the other and see which one fills up fastest. Activism is not competitive, it's cooperative. Jilly, I agree with that, and that's why it's so fucking frustrating to watch someone like Abby Martin make it competitive, make it, I don't know, set a bunch of qualifiers before you're allowed to participate. If there's a litmus test for saying I would prefer to not watch a man slowly be murdered in Belmarsh prison, you're doing activism wrong. I don't know. I would love a chance to have that conversation with Abby Martin. I doubt that will ever happen. We tried to get Robbie Martin on the Free Assange Vigil early on, and his immediate question was, are you affiliated with Unity for J? Well, Christy Dopp is the U.S. Unity for J spokeswoman. And he was like, oh, well, she must be a neocon. I can't go on the show. Fuck, dude. That's some weak sauce shit that you can't fucking stand for free speech and stand against the murder of Julian Assange because your sister's feelers got hurt by a guest from fucking a year and a half ago that she disagrees with over politics but may not disagree with over the freedom of Julian Assange. It's fucking weak. Abby fell for the left-right paradigm, and it's bullshit talk about ideas, not true. Yeah, Happy New Year, Kelly. And by the guys, again, this is an Ask Me Anything. I'm gonna go for about another half an hour, and then I've got a ton of shit to do. If you have any questions about anything at all, if there's anything you ever want to ask me, go ahead and throw them into the chat. If you feel like giving a super chat today, all of my super chats from December, January, and February are going to go directly to the Action for Assange GoFundMe, so that we can get ourselves to London and DC respectively. Next Sunday on this channel and on Gordon Dimmick's channel, we will be doing, at the regular time of Slow News Day, we'll be doing a special Free Assange Vigil. We'll be interviewing Tariq Haddad, who just resigned from Newsweek over the OPCW leaks. That is going to be a fantastic interview. We also have Emmy B, Greek Emmy on Twitter, longtime Julian Assange supporter and activist, and we are also going to have Somerset Bean, the graphic designer who is responsible for some of the most noticeable and prolific art related to Julian Assange. And it's going to be hosted by me and Gordon and Andrew and Christy and Taylor. It's going to be fucking epic, and I really, really hope you're there. Andrew's driving to DC right now. That's awesome. Kelly Lee, I heard Soleimani was lured to Iraq per Trump request for diplomatic talks. That is 100% correct. Um, the State Department asked Iraq to mediate. Uh, they got Soleimani on Iraqi soil and they gave him a drone strike at the airport where he got off. Propaganda, who did the new profile pic on Twitter. That's a friend of mine who goes by the name Johnny Bravado. Um, he is an incredible artist, and I can't recommend. I mean, he also produces beats. He is a wildly creative motherfucker, and he's my aura twin. Check this shit out. Back in April, we had a meetup about an hour south of Mount Shasta. There's a bunch of people in the Eyes Open Network, which is the show Rogue Ways that Lindsay Sharman hosts. She's been on the show a number of times. Odin's Alchemy, a show that my buddy Ben Balderson puts on. And there's a number of other shows that have arisen out of this organization, out of this fucking group of knuckleheads. We had a meetup back in April. One of the things that we did, which was unplanned, was an aura, like mapping, maybe? I don't know. I got hooked up to this weird ass machine and it printed out what my aura looked like. And Johnny's was almost identical to mine. Fucking, I don't know. It was mostly light purple and white, if you're curious. Solitary Reaper, good to see you. I will put a link to Johnny's art on my Twitter when we're done for the day. Yeah, dude, he's something. He is. He's incredible. I dig his work. Yeah, I really can't do anything about the kids playing next door. I'm at the studio. They're not even my kids, like, so I can't like scream shut the fuck up. And they'll be like, oh, they'll probably take me seriously, and then I'll, have angry parents. I don't want that. You mean DC, formerly known as Rome, Maryland? Yeah. If you're familiar at all with the book Good Omens, it's a book by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. They did a very successful, I think, A&E or Stars or some shit like that. Turned it into like a 6-episode series. There's a bit in there where Crowley, the demon, takes credit for designing, I think, the M25 in London. And what it is it's a sigil that summons some sort of demon or some shit like that. That's basically how DC's laid out. It's designed to just suck energy and turn it into fucking hate, and that kind of feeds the cult. Yeah, no, the kids are fine, dude. I do. The kids are alright. I am not nearly high enough, Quinn. I should fix that. Let me see if I've got anything else that I wanted to go over here real quick, as we kind of wrap this up. There's that. That's an entirely different subject. I think we will get back to at a later time. Have I dug into optimism over despair? I'm about 80 pages into it, Quinn. I find myself getting frustrated when I read Chomsky later in life because he's so non-committal. Um, Now, you can look at that as he's a teacher, and even when he's giving an interview, he approaches it like he would a classroom lecture, in that he wants you, the student, or you, the reader, you, the listener, to to take what to take what he says and then form your own opinion. Um, Except for he's got a lot of opinions and he states them very frankly and very clearly. Um, he even talks about in Optimism Over Despair, like when he writes politically, that he wants the reader to know what his position is up front. Um, but but I find it frustrating that he'll dismiss conspiracy theory, as it were, and in one sentence, and then two paragraphs down, he'll fucking validate it and agree with it, but not label it that. Like, it seems to me that let me think of an example. Somebody, one of the interviewer asked him if it was deliberate that we have this, war machine, um, that if it was deliberate that the goal of U.S. foreign policy is, global hegemony and kind of a new world order sort of thing. And he dismisses that as conspiracy, and then goes right on to list like all of the fucking war crimes and all of the rationale for the forever war that we have, that validates the idea of global hegemony. So I don't know, it's a little frustrating. It is. Uh, what is going on with the rise of autism? I have seen in schools around my area they have had to increase autism education tenfold. Uh, there's a book called Autism: Transhumanism's Dirty Little Secret. And the guy who wrote it is part of this Eyes Open group that I was talking about, and I can't remember his name offhand. But I will go dig that up, and I will post a link to it on Twitter. Can we brew up another batch of that opium moonshine? I fucking. If you guys are just seeing me for the first time and you're not in on that story, about 10 years ago now, when my stupid older brother was alive, we were regularly making batches of moonshine. There was a batch where it got a ball about that big of opium poppy scum dumped in it, and when you drank it, it took away all your pain, and it gave this like nice purple glow around everything, and it was just I'll consult on the brewing, Fred, but I do not imbibe anymore. It's been a little bit over 3 years since I had a drink. Some of y'all go after Abby more than Trump, hurting people like H.A. Goodman, who pushes everything Trump does is good, including Kavanaugh. Abby and others do their thing, and you do yours. So, look, man, I have said many, 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 many times that I believe that H.A. Goodman wears tinfoil underwear on his head. Andrew, my co-host over at Free Assange, happens to think that he's like super double secret squirrel getting people away from Trump, but I have yet to see results of that. I think H.A. Goodman is doing whatever H.A. Goodman can do to raise H.A. Goodman's profile and make himself some money. Um, in terms of criticizing Abby, I'm going to criticize people regardless of who they are for the things that I don't agree with, and I will give them all the credit in the world for the things that I do agree with. My problem with Abby is that she wants it to be a red team, blue team thing, and that's not what this is about. As Jason Burma says it all the time, it's not about right or left, it's about right or wrong. And the fucking persecution and prosecution of Julian Assange is wrong. There's nothing legal about any of it. There's nothing legitimate about any of it. And to pull back support or to not lend your voice to an organization who is working our collective asses off to spread information and help gather people to support Julian Assange, simply because you disagree with a guest that has been on one time, warrants criticism. It does. H.A. Goodman is a walking parody. We used to put liquid Lortab in our bourbon in 7. Holy fuck, dude. I have not, Solitary Reaper. I don't even know how to pronounce that guy's last name, so I'm not going to embarrass myself. Send me a link. DM me a link. I'll go check it out. William Arter, it's fucking insane tribulation when we should be riding the wave like surfers in the age of Aquarius. I thought the age of Aquarius was over. I thought we're like in the age of like double cancer with fucking pitchforks and rain made out of anvils or some shit like that. Scuffed World Order. Abby is right. There can be no alliance with Fash. Now look. Nobody is saying you've got to blow a fascist. Nobody is saying you've got to walk hand in hand down the street with them. We are trying to save a guy's life and fucking protect what little bit of free speech and free flow of information that we have. You could make the argument that simply because Bernie Sanders is in Congress and running as a president in the Democratic Party, that he has not just an alliance but a beneficial working partnership with the Fash. You could argue that simply the existence of or groups like Proud Boys and shit like that, just because they exist, that that efforts to curb their speech, curb their platforms, are, and the outlets and the various organizations that you have to go through in order to make that happen, is in fact a collaboration with the Fash. That logic doesn't hold up, man. It doesn't. And look, Abby can think whatever she wants to, but I think it hurts the effort to find common ground when you're constantly drawing lines, when you're constantly adding labels to people, when you're constantly trying to pin people into one box or another. I don't think that everyone who has espoused a neocon talking point is a dyed-in-the-wool fucking fascist. Nor do I think that everyone who has espoused a progressive talking point is a straight-up fucking, you know, socialist, commie, Marxist, fuck whatever. I think the world is way too complex and too complicated for a blanket statement like that. And I think it limits our ability to aim towards collective ascension if we can't find what we have in common and then work on shedding those labels or shedding those ideologies that had us thinking in a fascistic way in the first place. HA was a thing around the same time as Same Progressive. Many of the same followers. Tim Black used to do a weekly with them. Yeah. The difference being HA never got fucked with like Debbie got fucked with. Debbie got straight up punished every time she went on the air. H.A. Goodman never had that problem. You don't call a show No Sellouts if you're not planning on being a fucking sellout. You don't have to try and distinguish yourself like that if you're already not a fucking sellout. What do you guys think H.A. Goodman was gonna do? What do you think Tim Black was gonna do? I don't know. Fascists are the corporations that own the government and the militaries under them. Yeah, that's true to an extent. There's also an intelligence community component. And this is where William Martyr is going to come in the chat and say that there's also a Jesuit component. And I've talked about this before. When I did my video on CIA Pete being CIA, I made sure to mention his Jesuit background. I'm gonna come back to recommending books again. If you're not familiar with the author Daniel Quinn in the book Ishmael, there's a second book in that series called The Story of B. The Story of B centers around a young Jesuit priest who is brought into the office in the first act and told the true history of the Jesuit order, which is to act as the papal assassination squad, and basically the papal version of the CIA. That is an accurate assessment, and that's what happens. That's where we're at today. Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, you would be hard-pressed to find someone in leadership on either party that doesn't have a direct connection to both the Jesuit order and the Bavarian Illuminati. But that's a discussion for another day, as I've got like 8 minutes left. Definition of fascist is loose and misused. Of course it is. Of course it is. Take care, Drew. You have an idea for shirts? What's your idea for shirts, Karen? The Epiphany is, it's the day of the Epiphany tomorrow. I would imagine that we're going to have some military action. I imagine that there will be much bombing of Gaza to celebrate the Epiphany. I imagine that there will be several strafing runs in Iraq because of that. Andrew, fascism is the merger between economic and political interests. At its most basic, and in the OG Mussolini definition, absolutely 100%. It's the merger of corporate and state power, and that consolidation naturally gives birth to wanting to protect that class and that group of people. And the only way you can do that is through authoritarian measures. I am not a fan of authoritarianism on any level, certainly not a political one, and even much less so in the workspace. I worked for a legitimate fascist for a couple of years. It sucked. Yeah, that's my whole point. The U.S. politicians and the institutions they represent are by definition fash. But you saying Bernie is fash too is like saying, why do you participate in society if you agree with... That you're making my point for me. It's a fucking ridiculous argument to say that there can be no collaboration with the fash in terms of Abby Martin not wanting to go on Unity for Jay. That's fucking ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. To paint that as a collaboration with the fash is fucking dumb. Which is why I made the ludicrous argument that Bernie participating in the system that he is by definition collaborating with fascists. It's a ridiculous argument. That's my fucking point. You see, 60 Minutes will be doing a thing on Epstein killing himself tonight. It should be great. No, I didn't. What did I hear, though? I heard that, I think it's on, I think it'll be a 2020 episode with Maria Farmer, who is one of the people that spoke up after Virginia Guffrey started getting smeared for speaking out about being raped by Jeffrey Epstein. A number of other people. Maria Farmer has gone on to talk about, how both her and her sister were part of this child rape trafficking network that she was brought to work the door at Epstein's New York mansion, that there was an upstairs room that always had underage girls and underage models up in it, and that people like Alan Dershowitz would frequent it. And I would be more interested in watching an interview with her. In fact, I would be very interested in interviewing her. I know Jason Burmis is trying to reach out to her, and if he's successful in doing that, I may try to piggyback off of that, because that's an incredible story. I would imagine that the kids in the background are having fun. They're next door. Yeah, they're not my kids. My kids are at home. And it's about time for me to wrap, guys. So I want to thank you so much for being a part of this with me. Again, please tune in next Sunday. In place of Slow News Day will be a Free Assange Vigil with guests Tariq Haddad and Emmy B and Somerset Bean. We will be simulcasting this event with Gordon Dimmick. Gordon is going to be joining the host team on the side of this, on this side of it. We do have a GoFundMe to try and get ourselves to both London and DC. We're in the planning stages of the DC events. We've got an informal game plan for London, which is going to crystallize in the next couple of weeks. If you can support that, please do. And if you can't, please share the link. Yeah, fucking thank you guys so much. I love you all, and I will see you soon. And I'm Steve Boykinen. This has been Slow News Day. Good luck to us all.